We are illustration and design students. A bit about us, we got our start in like fan art or like really good characters from shows and games. Then when we developed a bit, we went into comics because we were interested in illustration. And then after that, we're breaking into a new field. It's a bit of a hybrid. And since we released our project recently, the English Blitz, if you've heard of it. And it's also Fleur's thesis, so we're going to talk about the design process.
Okay, so for my thesis, as Becky said, we've from a very young age really interested in telling stories and trying to find new ways of telling stories. And for people for us who are thinking very visually, like drawing and kind of words and characters, we're always trying to find the most accessible way of telling these stories. And I mean, it could either be like in the form of writing, but we like using images. We have an interest in video games, but we have no idea how to program anything, so we're always stuck in that field. And one of the most accessible ways for artists is to turn towards webcomics. It's very, very easy to see the appeal when it comes to webcomics. Like from an artist's point of view, you don't have to deal with trying to find publishers or distributors. You're your own boss. You have full creative control, so you can try and market your stuff to any kind of niche group. So you don't have to do something that's mainstream and that sells a lot. You can do whatever you want and find audience for you online. And it was a good thing for the fans as well. Fans have a direct contact with you at all times, and they can give input on how you can develop the story, and also it's free, and so you get a wider audience. Okay. But then the drawbacks when it comes to webcomics, if any of you guys here read webcomics, they take a really, really long time to finish. I mean, standard webcomic time to release a page, you take a page a week, and if you take maybe planning for a 100-page webcomic or even a 200-page comic, you're looking at somewhere between 2 to 5, 6 years just to finish one story. And for people who like to tell stories and for readers, it can be a really long time to stay interested and invested in just one story. And also personal problems get in the way, you're sick, so that's another week off from launching your page. I've been following so many comics. There's one that stopped midway because she got scoliosis, not scoliosis, I mean repellent strain injury in her hand, and she couldn't continue it. Another problem is the financial difficulties. It's you trying to maintain a full-time job and still do this in the side time. So it doesn't really. The webcomic model is definitely very flawed. I mean, there's a lot of great appeal, and anyone who's an artist here. You probably thought about doing a comic or even tried to make one. So for my thesis project, I really want to try and find a new way. Find a new way of telling stories while still using visuals and writing. And I kind of looked into what it is that was most important when it comes to webcomics. And at least for me personally, the initial pull depends on the artwork. If it looks nice, I'll probably be interested in reading it. If it has really bad story and bad artwork and stuff tells me, oh, but the story is good, I probably would be hesitant to start it. So good artwork is probably the initial pull. Whereas, and then what actually keeps me reading on for long is the story and the character really progresses. And then there comes to a certain point where, okay, I know you're good at drawing and I'm waiting every week for a new page, but then I just want the story and the characters not lying into it. So I tried to discussing what ways can we have reduce artwork and increase more story. And we looked into Japanese visual novels. If you're not familiar with the genre, you take on the role of a character and you move from scene to scene, interacting with other characters. And with visual novels, you have a lot of repetitive artwork. You have the character sprites, basically, that change between some basic expressions and poses, and the environments change as you move from scene to scene and background. And what I'm thinking, I guess, is you still have the like the nice artwork that what draws you in. But like this, you can just bring a little story, because like if you're in a webcomic or any comic really, and you're reading the dialogue between characters, and you don't really have to see like the angles change for every single position. Like it's just dialogue, you can turn it, and like in this way you can turn it out. Like you just use the text and then change the expressions from like a preset list of expressions. So this is like the basic anatomy. It goes into webcomics, the character, the background, and the dialogue. And we kind of thought we could apply this to webcomics, like somehow find a way to work visual novels with webcomics. Visual novels have the element of choice in them, and like using things like stats. But we were going to plan to do away with all of this, and instead just focus on telling our story. I mean, the format of visual novels, like we first got into it because in like mainstream games, you start to see some of this element in it as well. Like you have dialogue, and you can pick which options. And this is very like this really started from like Japanese RPGs and visual novels, and like, this is a really big influence for us. Same thing with war games. Okay, this was the very first early concept we had for our hybrid like webcomic game. We're originally going to release it for mobile and tablet, which is why like the final product right now is still in a portrait format, because the original intention was to make it for mobile. That's been delayed for now because of basically since my thesis project aims to like get it done as soon as possible, and it's much easier for PC than it is for mobile and tablets. Okay, so okay, go back. All right, one of our early, in our early concept, the idea was that you can tap on either the left side or the right side of the screen and progress through the story. Like the dialogue would change, the characters, and like you know the label which characters hold, and their expressions would change according to the dialogue. From a programming point of view, this is like really, really simple stuff. Like there isn't any complex like it's essentially like a slideshow once it was made. But still, like I have no experience in programming, and I had to program this alone. So I was doing research of what I could use to help me program, and I came across this program called Construct Tool. I don't know if you have someone who has ever used Construct before or heard of it, but as it said, programming not required. It's a really, really amazing program for amateurs who have no idea how to program, as well as for like professional programmers, because like it has really powerful tools that they can exploit and make more complex stuff. And another good thing is that it's really cheap. So like unlike other engines or which have like really expensive licenses, this is really cheap. And it exports very, very easily to multiple platforms. So you can just make the game once and export it for web, for PC and Mac, and for mobiles, for tablets, for Facebook as well. Like it's very like portable. Okay, this is the process of how it works. Instead of using a language, you just have a list of commands that you can set, and basically just use the same logic you would when you program normally, but you don't have to actually study the language or learn how to program with it. And you have like one place where it's called the event sheet, and the other one where you can set up the scene and placing your images and artwork. Okay, so how do you work? The first thing we did is, me and Becky, we sat down and planned the story that we wanted to tell, and we planned it like scene by scene of how we're going to tell it. Then she would focus on writing the script, and I would get to drawing it. Once those were done, we would input it inside this, and then finally testing and spotting any mistakes made along the way. This is an example of how we had to write the script, because we had to devise a new way of writing the script, since we had to input it line by line and had to allocate like a certain expression and character and name with each one. So like you have the room, the background that you need, the character, his expression, and then the dialogue. And then like that I knew like it streamlined the process from when I was inputting it to just to the text, and then I pick which characters I needed. And I had like a sheet near me that like of suspicious, okay, this number is sprite sheet number like 7, and then I would just pick that, and like that we speed up the process. This is kind of like what some of the asset library would look, with the changing the expressions and the clothing to match the environment and the scene. Backgrounds, and there's like a lot of sprites that when the very beginning of when we were planning this, I took for granted, like there's sprite in anything, and so the process was always lengthened, like, okay, oh, I forgot how to add the name tag here, so then I had to go and make sure I change one for every character. This is an example of the coding that went into this. So for every scene I had, I came up, I made a global number, and basically I set the commands that if you pressed the left side of the screen, you would add 1 to the global number. If you pressed back, it would decrease 1. And then what I would do is for like number 1, I would set a list of set what commands need to be. So for example, I need this text box, I need this character, I need this one to turn in this one, so I set this text, set this size, blah blah blah. It's a very tedious but easy process to making this. And this is the final thing we made. I still don't know exactly what to call it, because it's a cross between a webcomic and a visual novel. We worked doing it scene by scene. Originally we had the intention of updating our story an episode at a time, which would include something like 6 to 8 scenes. But now we've gotten like feedback that it's best to be released like 1 scene a week, kind of like to keep readers coming back like every week, as opposed to, for example, releasing an episode once a month. And also because like the final chapter could take somewhere like between 30 to 40 minutes to read, and for some people like that might be they might get tired reading it. So like if they just read like 1 or 2 scenes like every week, then like they can, it's better. Yeah. Like that's the feedback I got. Wait, no. Okay. Then I'm going to show you like the actual final thing. This full screen. Scroll. Sorry, it's not full screen. I probably should have loaded it from before. No.
You can zoom out if you want in the browser.
Ah, where am I? So this is the final. This is the final thing. Like we only have chapter 1 in it so far. You pick one episode select, then you click the episode, then you click the scene and start from the beginning. You click on the left side and you can keep on reading the story. Just like zoom through. It links from scene to scene, and this you can also see this like on Newgrounds, and it's also on Google Chrome Store for free. You can download directly onto your browser, and that way it will also be updated automatically. Like if we ever release a new scene, it will update automatically to the internet. And just a little bit, I really haven't explained the story actually yet, but the story is it's a sci-fi thriller that's set like 500 years in the future. Takes place on the new planet that humanity inhabits, called Nova Central, and it has an artificial moon connected to it called Elis. And on this planet, you kind of have what's like the worst of like the worst of what humanity has to offer. Like it's filled with vice and crime and corruption. And the story focuses on these four main characters. The first two who are police investigators, and they are investigating a crime that was committed on the third character, who is a big competitor on this sport that takes place on Elis. That's like a gladiator tournament. They fight against like giants and aliens and monsters. And there was an attempt on her life, and they're trying to like figure out, try and solve who attempted the crime, the murder. This is where you can find it on Google Chrome and on Newgrounds. You can follow our updates for more story on Facebook and Twitter, on our Tumblr. Thank you a lot. If you have any questions or comments or critiques, you've already seen it and have any feedback, we'd love to hear it as well.